It is Thursday, July 18th, 2024. This is another edition of Baseball Today, presented to you by our friends at Booking.com. Booking.yeah. That is my man, Trevor Plouffe. I'm Chris Rose, producer Dan, intern Tommy along for the ride as well. Baseball might be off. We are not. In fact, we are glad to be back live since we couldn't do that the last 3 days down in Arlington. It's good to see you, my friend, although I liked seeing you in person and being able to hug you and stuff. So this is a little strange.
It is a little strange. I liked being with you in person as well, but I like being home with my family even more.
Yes,
No
you do.
offense.
No, I understand that. Believe me.
It's nice
There's
to
only
be in the friendly confines of my studio, and I got my pencil back. I didn't have any pencils to throw up in the air while we were
no.
recording down there in Arlington. So, um, excited to yuck some ball with you, though. How you doing?
Good. This is the last day of the season without any baseball.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
So
is.
I guess enjoy whatever it is you enjoy doing other than watching baseball. And then we'll get back at it on Friday where we'll break down a full slate of games. We are going to start off with the tip of the cap. And, on yesterday's show, we thanked everybody behind the scenes who did so much good, hard work to put together great content down there in Arlington. And then we all went our separate ways after yesterday's show. You and I had no problem. We headed back to the West Coast, and then we're on a text chain with everybody from our travels. And we keep hearing all these flights are delayed and getting diverted. And we had one crew that ended up in Chicago and eventually made it home late, many hours after their expected time of arrival. We had another crew that got stranded in Pittsburgh overnight, led by one of our fearless leaders at the company, Jake Storiali. And do you know who they got stuck in that city with?
I do.
Did you see?
I did.
Yes, that's right. The Hall of Famer Vladimir Guerrero Sr. So, of course, Jake runs right up to him in the airport and is like, hey, let's do this. I mean, of course you expect that out of Jake, right?
We actually saw Vlad Sr. getting out of his car when we got to the airport. I said, hey, look, it's Vlad Sr. to you. And then apparently they were on the same flight. Yeah, they got diverted to Pittsburgh, had to stay the night. I know that Jake and the boys went out for some beers, so they made the best of it. But I don't know, that's tough, man. When we grinded for 3 or 4 days down there in Dallas, you just want to get back to your own bed, see your family, and to have the travel interrupted like that is tough. So, love you guys.
I think
Even
they
if you
got
get
out
to see
early.
Vlad Sr., it's still tough.
Right. I think they got out earlier today. I don't know if they've all gotten to their respective homes, but we want to give them a tip of the cap for continuing the grind. All right. Now let's get to some off-day baseball talk. And depending on how you do your baseball math, I think there's roughly 22 out of the 30 teams that are still realistically in contention. You could probably make an argument for or against one or two others. But which team needs to show its executives over the next 10 days when we start that it belongs in the buyers instead of sellers category?
I see you're donning the Rays cap. I'm assuming it's probably for this question. So I had a different answer anyway, and I've been saying this. If you watched any of our programming while we were in Arlington, I said I think the Rangers are that team. I'm going to stick with that, even though yesterday, now Chris Young has came back and kind of he didn't eat his words that he said earlier on, but he had some new words for us because the Rangers did have, a nice little streak there to end the first half. He expects them to be buyers, or he wants them to be buyers now. But if they do struggle and get off to a rough start in the second half, I do believe they can get rid of some of their guys, like a David Robertson. They probably will entertain some of the pitching, some of the starters that are on, at the end of their contract. So this is the team that I've been thinking all along has a lot of pieces that could really change the trade market. But again, Chris Young just came out and said yesterday, like, hey man, like we want to be buyers. So how much of that is lip service? How much of that is real? I guess it really depends on how they perform coming out of the second half. But I think they're still the team to me, regardless of all the quotes that we've seen out there. I still think they're a team that the first, 7 to 10 days out of the break is really going to determine what they do at the deadline.
Yeah, I am wearing a Tampa Bay Rays hat for this answer, although I don't know. It's dangerous to get inside the brains of Eric Neander and the rest of that front office because they are so unconventional in the way that they do things. So, like, compete, be sellers, and still factor in the wild card. I mean, I think that's really the way that they think. They think they have enough in the minor leagues every year that they always bring up guys that they've traded for or developed or whatever that can help them. And I believe that they do have some guys. I think they would be selling extremely low on Randy Rosarena. So I'm not so sure that that's the guy they get rid of, although you keep hearing that name being bantied about. I do think that Yadi Diaz is an interesting one because there are some teams that might need some first base help. He is going to make $10 million next year, so he's not strictly a rental. He has, even though his overall numbers aren't quite what they were when he was making all-star teams, it's been over 800 OPS each of the last 2 months. I know we've only played half the month of July, but still, that's a guy that's interesting. I think Pete Fairbanks, although he's been up and down, he's always great for an incredible quote after a game, so that I would want to make a trade for him just for that standpoint. They're 5.5 out, and I'm putting them here because I don't know what they're always thinking. So I think that they, even though maybe the next 10 days don't matter, I still think that they're kind of an interesting team to follow.
They're always a team that's probably never really one way, sellers or buyers. They float in the middle. They have their own way of operating. So we've already seen them get rid of some starting pitching. It wouldn't surprise me if they did a little bit of both at the deadline because that's just how they think. They are who they are. They do things differently. I mean, with this, so many teams in contention, and I think everyone's calling it a seller's market, meaning there's going to be more buyers than sellers out there. I bet a couple of these teams will probably copy the Rays and entertain selling some of these pieces while not completely committing to a full, fire sale.
Yeah, and I think that's the definition of a Tampa Bay Ray organization. All right, let's move on. Which player do you hope just got away from the grind of baseball, relax, put their feet up, hit the reset button because their first half was just simply not good and will be needed if their team has any hope in the second half?
There's so many questions that you asked today that I want to just go to my Twins here. So I'm going to use this question as my Twins answer, and it's Pablo Lopez for me. The Twins have a lot of really good things going for them. I think their bullpen is fine. I think it's one of the better bullpens in the league. I think you can trust it. We're getting some reinforcements in Brock Stewart back. That's going to be great. The lineup has been one of the best lineups in baseball. Hopefully Royce Lewis comes back and adds to that after the break. But really, the starting pitching still kind of scares me. If we're being honest, we're talking about getting into the playoffs, going up against some of these teams with quote unquote big boy rotations, like matching up with them right now. I think Joe Ryan would start game 1. Pablo Lopez would start game 2, but he just hasn't had a great first half, at least not up to his standards. He's kind of been up and down. He's had some decent starts. He had a great start against Oakland, but how much can you really pay attention to that? But his off-speed stuff just hasn't been there this year. Some of the peripherals, though, like what he's done, if you go to Savant, like his Savant page is okay, but the sweeper hasn't been as good this year. It's getting hit at a 247 batting average. Last year was a 173 batting average against. The sinker hasn't been good for him. I think he's kind of got to just get rid of that. Stop throwing the sinker. He's trying to do that, to set up other pitches, but that's getting hit extremely hard. 452. He's only thrown it 8% of the time, but it's getting hit at a 452 batting average, Chris. So I think really there's just some repertoire changes that he can make, some grip changes or some mechanical issues that he can fix, and he'll be that guy again. But he had a bad first half. There's no really way to sugarcoat it. So he needed the little reset, take some time off, come back, and the Twins desperately need Pablo to be a guy in the second half and then into the postseason.
Was his 14 strikeout game against Oakland, or was it somebody else?
I think it was against Oakland. Eight innings pitched, no runs, 14 strikeouts. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That is your only Twins answer of the day. Okay. If you have another Twins answer, we're going to have to put you in the little penalty box. Okay. Does that sound fun?
This next question that's really good for the Twins too, but I'm not going to do it.
No, we're not going to do that. You're going to be penalized if so. For me, the San Francisco Giants somehow, with all of their injuries and with all of their questionable starting rotation performances for the most part, particularly by Blake Snell, who did give 2 really good performances to get going at the end of the first half, somehow they're only 2.5 out, I believe, of the wild card chase. One guy I want to see really get it done, because I think Matt Chapman has been solid. He's had a solid first half. He's been there every day. One other guy that they spent on was Jorge Soler. And I can barely remember one thing that he's done. I think he hit a grand slam this year, but he really hasn't done much. So I looked at his numbers. I was like, oh, God, you're right. He really hasn't done much. I think his OPS is 702. This is a guy who hit 36 bombs last year, 36 in a pretty spacious park. So don't give me the whole, well, he's out in San Francisco now. It's the same sort of deal. He hit 10 first half homers. He is on pace for less than 20. I know he's battled some injuries, but be in there, be a difference maker. You are a former World Series MVP. Go be that guy. They gave him 3 years and $42 million to go launch some homers and be a solid bat somewhere in that lineup. They tried him at leadoff. They tried him in the middle. I don't care where they put you. Go hit bombs. Be that dude. So go relax with your beautiful family. He is a dude. He is a get off the bus guy. He is one of the guys who, if like we show up to a football practice during training camp, we're going to put him first off the bus so that the football team knows that we mean business when we show up. So
a show pony. That's what you're calling him.
What are we calling him?
A show pony.
No. It's more than that. I need production. I don't need him just trot out there and look good.
Well, that's what you just called him. First off the bus means a show pony, but I get what you're saying right now.
Yeah.
He's again, so Pablo Lopez is struggling with his sinker. Jorge Soler is struggling with the sinker this year. A -7 run value on that pitch is hitting 209 against it. Last year hit 300 against it. So I guess the bat pass changed with all these things that are going on with pitching now. Let me just go on a tangent real quick.
Yeah,
I know we want to make this a quick show, just real quick, okay? I saw a video of Chris Sale. Chris Sale, first of all, is hilarious. He's been getting interviewed a lot because he's been on the All-Star team. He mentioned that he's never called a pitch in his entire life for himself, which I thought was just hilarious because he's like, yeah, like I didn't do it in college, and then I get to the big leagues, and like I got AJ Przinsky, so I'm not just gonna like start, calling my own pitches now. And he's just been so good that he could get away with that. He just throws his pitches. And then Pitching Ninja had a talk about his changeup grip, and him and Tarek Skubal throw like the same type of changeup. And he said that when he was in Atlanta, or when he got to Atlanta, I believe, or was it the Red Sox? Where he was talking to a pitching coach, and the pitching coach was like, hey, instead of trying to pronate your changeup this way, try to cut it. And Chris Sale's like, why would I ever do that? He goes, I don't know anything about seam shifted wake. I don't know anything about that stuff. And so he just tried it. And now all of a sudden he's trying to cut his changeup. It goes the other way because of the seam shifted wake. This is the stuff that I'm talking about with pitchers. They can just make these adjustments so quickly now and change everything about what they do. It makes it very, very difficult for hitters. But I just thought that was really interesting when I was perusing, the tea leaves of the All-Star game. Chris Sale was a great example of what I always try to convey on this program.
Well, it was interesting. Colin Cowherd, I think we might have mentioned this on the show. Colin never talks about baseball. Very, very, very rarely on the show does he. And he had, he was talking the other week. He's had these two faux pas. One, Jeter shut him down last week on something.
They said he played against Nolan Ryan.
Skit. And then, yeah, well, and Nolan Ryan had retired 2 years before Jeter set foot into a big league box. And then the other thing, he said, hitting's just not very good. I looked at stats the other day, and there's only a dozen guys that are hitting 300 or higher. And everybody's like, that's because everybody out of the bullpen throws 97 with some sort of cut on it. So just, this isn't 1980 where they're throwing 88-mile-an-hour powder puffs right down the fast lane. So whatever. I hear you. It's harder and harder to hit. I don't know about you, Plouffe. I don't know who was most excited when you walked through the door, whether it was Olivia or Teddy or the beautiful little Isla. I don't know who it was. So for me, in order, Michelle was happy to see me. It was her birthday, so I got a nice little, that was nice to see. Brady gave me a big hug.
I saw your guys' interaction.
Yeah, I still haven't seen Josh because he was working all day yesterday and last night. He got home after I went to bed. So I still haven't, but who was most excited to see me? My dog, Sydney. That is the honest to God truth. She was bouncing around here, yipping, yapping, squealing, the whole bit. She was so excited. Why? One of the many reasons is because Pops takes care of her every day thanks to the farmer's dog. It is food that is developed with vets, made fresh from real meat and veggies, perfectly portioned for your dog and delivered right to your door. It isn't just fresh, higher quality food. They also send the food pre-portioned specifically for your dog based on their unique nutritional needs. So it's very simple. You head on over to thefarmersdog.com, fill out a questionnaire. It takes less than 5 minutes. We're talking about the basics. What's the breed of your dog, the age, how much exercise it gets, what it normally eats. And then they send this stuff to you in frozen packs with the dog's name right on it. So it says Sydney there. You stick it in the freezer and you keep it there until about 24 hours before you need that pouch. Put it in the fridge. It'll thaw out and you're ready to go. So you kick that kibble to the side, whatever that goop is in a can, you get rid of that because they deserve real healthy food. It will help them feel better. It's stuff that they taste where they're like, oh, this stuff is amazing. It'll help with their coat, with their skin, with their breath, which is important because as much as we love our four-legged friends, sometimes they can throw heaters your direction. It makes for smaller, better poops, easier digestion. It is the 5-tool player of dog food. So it doesn't matter if your dog is old or young. It's always the right time to invest in keeping them healthy and keep them playing ball with you. And you're going to get 50% off your first box at thefarmersdog.com/today. Plus, you get free shipping, which is a big deal. It's not one of those little jewelry boxes. It's a big-ass dog frozen food box. Head on over to thefarmersdog.com/today to get half off. Because at the end of the day, don't you want your dog looking up at you with those big chocolate eyes saying, Reggie, right, Roo, right, Roo. You know what? Somebody at the event the other day came up to me and said, Reggie, right, Roo. They love the farmer's dog ad that much. Just saying. All right, here we go. Which player that's been out a while or perhaps the entire season but is expected at some point back in the second half are you most excited to see return?
Let's deep dive into Royce Lewis statistics and what he means to the Twins. Just kidding. Although that's a valid answer for this question. I'm not going to do
great
it.
one.
Okay. It's a very, very valid answer. Watch out, American League. I'm going to go Matt McLain of the Reds. I know he's been cleared to do some baseball activities. He's down in Arizona, kind of working his way back. I think the Reds need him desperately. I'm on the Reds train. I think that they're somewhat trending in the right direction, but they need offense, which is crazy because at the beginning of the season, I would have said, man, these guys got a really long lineup, but they've been dealing with a ton of injuries. Encarnacion Strand, Fredo, like these guys, the guys that have been there haven't performed up to expectations, essentially. But a guy like Matt McLain, we saw him last year kind of like not take over the leadership role necessarily, but he was a spark plug, man. Like I thought he was the difference maker when they went on that run last year. So Ellie's been doing his thing this year, but I think if you add McLain back into the mix, it kind of changes the Reds lineup dynamic. So I don't know how far away he is. We're not getting super clear reports on exactly when he's going to come back. I'd expect it to be sometime early August. I'm thinking if he's doing baseball activities now, he's got to ramp it up. He's got to do a rehab assignment, and then he'll come back. Man, if he comes back and the Reds are still in the thick of the race, I just think that add a bullpen piece or two, and this could be a very, very dynamic team. So I would love to see him come back, not miss a beat. Hopefully that's what happens. And I also think they could be one of those teams, Chris, that is both a buyer and seller. I think they could say, hey, we got kind of an influx of position players. Maybe they'd go ahead and trade a Jonathan India and get back some bullpen pieces or trade for some bullpen pieces. But if McLain comes back, I think he can be a difference maker in the Reds lineup.
Yep, I think that's a great one. So which team has had the pendulum swing back and forth the most out of any club during the first half? That would be my beloved New York Mets.
Yeah, right? As I said, the Mets, yes.
Yeah, there's some person out there who considered them DOA, I think, on May 29th, and then they just went on this amazing run.
You're trying to make up for that so much. I love it.
No. It's okay. You can own it, but they haven't. Right now, if we look at the standings, they're on the outside looking in. So for all you people that were saying, hater, Well, they got to still there's still work to do, is what they like to say a lot in the NFL world. There's still a
No,
lot
they're in it,
of
Chris.
work
They are
to
in it,
do.
Chris.
Wait,
They are in it.
no, they're 1.5 out, aren't
No,
they? Are these not updated? Hold on.
they're one game up on the Diamondbacks. They're in the third wild card spot right now. So you know, let's go, man.
Oh, they are in those. Okay, I had an old standings up that tells you I haven't used this computer since last week. So there you go. They're one game up. You're right. Okay, so they are right there. They're right there. So Kodai Senga, he is close. His next start might come on a major league mound. They have done all of this year without their best pitcher from a season ago. And in case you've forgotten how good he was his rookie year here in the States, over 200 strikeouts, an ERA under 3 in 29 starts, a WAR of 4.5. He did work into the fifth inning in his last rehab start, which I believe came last Sunday. He is dealing with a shoulder, and shoulders scare you. But if he's ready to go, Mets, what are we waiting for, man? You could do that. And plus, I don't suggest doing it because I think they are going to go to a 6-man rotation if they have him in there. But you could trade one of your guys. Because there's such a lack of starting pitching out there. You could, if you want to be risky, trade one of the guys who's helped you here in the first half. I don't know. It's just a thought out there. But I'm excited to see Kodai Senga.
I am too excited to see Kodai Senga. I do want the Mets to be in the playoffs. I think it would make they're just such a fascinating organization to me. And I do love watching him pitch. So I like that answer. But Chris, let's lock it in with these Mets right now. Okay. Like you're clawing your way back with the Mets fans. Let's lock it in.
Okay. I'm wishing him luck. I want to see him. It only would have been perfect if Francisco Lindor or Brandon Nimmo could have made the All-Star team and gotten their just due.
Hey,
All
Pete
right.
Alonso. Pete Alonso is a great. Oh, wait. We're not at that question yet. Go ahead.
Here we go. Sometimes players explode in the second half and then make a serious run at an individual honor. Who might that be this year?
Pete Alonso is a great answer for this question, although that's not who I'm giving. And maybe you want to use it. I don't know if he's going to make it to an individual award, but he needs to have a big second half.
Well, then you could have used him for a different. There's no way he comes close to winning the MVP honors. No way.
No, you're right. But if you want to give Mets fans love, you can talk about Pete Alonso. My player is a guy that I've been on for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Some would say I was one of the first people to notice just how good this freaking guy was. And I love my Cuban ball players. Do you know who it is?
I don't.
Yordan MFing Alvarez.
Wow. Okay, good one.
Now, he's already had a very, very good first half. I mean, this guy's already got 19 homers. Let me see. Get it up again for you. 19 homers, driven in 52 runs. The OPS is in the 9s, 912 to be exact. He had a bad May. He had an OPS in the 700s in May. That's kind of like put his numbers down to, I'm not going to call them mortal numbers because he's actually it's still elite when you're in the 9s. But he has a chance here to go off. If he just kind of averages what he's done throughout this year, which is about 7 homers per month. If he can get to that level and just boost it a little bit, he can get to 40 homers, Chris. Mm-hmm. I believe he's going to drive in 100 or more runs. I believe his OPS is going to be in the high 9s. Now, is he going to be MVP this year? Probably not. He's a DH. He's played 28 games in the outfield. It's not pretty. He's never going to rack up the WAR like other players can. But in 2021, he was MVP 3. So he can get up to the upper echelons of that voting. And I think we're going to see the Astros go. I think he's going to be a huge part of it. His OPS in June was 1.1. His OPS in July has been 1.0 so far. He's going to carry that through the second half. And I think if he goes on a homer tear, which really, I don't know if we've ever seen him really go on a prolonged homer tear. His most homers in a season is 37. I feel like he's just got so much more potential to hit homers. I think one season we're going to look up and Yordan's going to have 50. If it's this year, he could be putting himself up in that MVP 2, MVP 3 category again. So Jordan's my
Yeah.
answer.
I mean, the thing is that if he's going to win it, Judge is going to have to either get injured or
He's
fall
never
flat
going to
on
win
his
it.
face. Yeah, it's
He's
just.
not going to win it.
But you're right.
He's
He
gonna be up
could
there.
finish in a top 3. For me, I'm not going to say that the AL Cy Young Award race is wide open, but there are a bunch of guys I think that are kind of fighting for positioning. Cole Reagans made the All-Star team for the Kansas City Royals, and part of the reason that they had such a solid first half was that they had 2 starting pitchers between Lugo and Reagans who did exceptionally well. So I would put Skubal, I would put Burns, I would put Lugo up there, and I think Cole Reagans is a guy that could be kind of coming from the back of the pack, and and here he comes on the outside. Could be one of those things. Only Garrett Crochet has more strikeouts per 9 among American League starters than Reagans. He's on pace to work over 180. His one kind of bugaboo is that he walks a ton of guys. That's not a good sign. He doesn't give up homers. He's given up 8 on the entire year. Keeps his team in games every time he pitches. So he's a guy that if Kansas City explodes in the second half and bypasses a team or two in the standings and fights it out for the AL Central, he's a guy that's going to get some serious consideration.
Interesting. He throws his slider 12% of the time. It's been his worst pitch by far. And again, I just wonder what, like, you can fix that. It seems so easily nowadays. If it's just mechanical, if it's a grip thing. So if he turns that on and he can just get some sort of, better results with his slider, then yeah, I can see that. I like that a lot. He's a stud.
Okay, last thing, and I kind of asked you this just when we were either traveling or doing something. I said, what do the all-star guys do? They get out, some are flying private jet wherever to their next destination after Tuesday's game. Some guys leave early Wednesday morning. I said, what do guys do just in general, guys who don't make the all-star team with their all-star break? Do they just sit around in the city in which they play? Do they hop on a plane? Just enlighten us a little bit.
I think it really depends on kind of where you're at and like your situation, whether you're single, whether you have a family. During the All-Star break, it's family time if you have a family. You get off days throughout the year, but those are like so sacred and you just want to like chill. When you have this extended period, then you really got to like make sure you're doing something with your family. At least that's what I always did. So whether that's just hanging, I think most guys kind of just hang in the cities that they play in because they're set up there. They have their housing and they just figure out something to do. In Minnesota, I got a cabin a few times and went up and just chilled out. If you're playing in a spot that's like a city after the break that's like cool, like Miami or, somewhere on the West Coast or Chicago, somewhere that you like, maybe you go there early and just get in a hotel somewhere and enjoy that. But by and large, most guys they're getting nice dinners. They're spending quality time with their family. They're mostly just getting rest though. If you're out trying to, do adventures and stuff, I don't think that's really good for, the start of the second half. You need to really recharge your batteries a little bit. So I think most guys are doing that. Now, if you're like on the single train and you don't got anybody to answer to, that's a different story, Chris. Like you're going to spend a couple days at the beginning of the All-Star break kind of blowing it out. Like you're going to go out, you're going to party, you're going to have some fun. And then you start to lock it in, a good 48, hours before you have to get back playing. Then you start to hydrate again, get all those things in. So it really depends on where you're at in your life. I've done both.
So like give me an example. The Padres are in Cleveland this weekend to start the second half. Are a lot of guys do they tell the team, hey, I'll meet you in Cleveland. Don't worry, I'm not going to be on the team flight. Is that what happens? Or do you have to be?
They can, but they'll just leave with the team from San Diego. What do you mean? They'll meet on, whether it's Thursday morning or something like that and just take the flight over there, most likely.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know.
You can tell the team, yeah, I'll meet you guys there.
Got it. And then there's no mandatory workout on Thursday.
Not really. They can't make it mandatory, but they can, it depends. Again, this depends on where you're at in your career. Like if you want to make a good showing, you show up. If you already are established, you're like, I'm good. It just kind of depends on
Got it.
Who you are.
All right. Good. All right. Thanks for letting us in on that little baseball secret. We appreciate it. If you're looking for stuff to do, there's a great Talkin' Baseball trade deadline draft that we have every year. It was the two of us, Jake and Shelfie. A lot of fun. So go. That's always a really entertaining one. It's point values depending on who you're sending where and if they'll land in a place. It's a fun thing. Logan Webb, latest episode of the Rose Rotation is out. He was excellent on a bunch of things. So if you're looking, and obviously we have a ton of content all over all of our channels. So please continue to check them out. And also in the football world, we're going to be doing what, TPPs? Is that what they're called? TTPs? What do you guys do? Yeah, well, for baseball, what do you
team
guys
profile and projections. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think we're gonna be doing those as well. That's the
Nice.
rumor.
Nice.
So yeah, make sure you check those out. Coming your way. We are back at it again on Friday, probably going live a little bit after noon Eastern. So probably let's say 12:15-ish or so for our one-of-a-kind
You can
producer.
go earlier, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know if I can go super early. I think I have an Austin Hedges interview, but I'll keep you posted. Maybe it'll be, let's say maybe noon. Maybe noon. Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. For our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke, our awesome intern, Tommy Young, that is my man, Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose. We will see you Friday here on Baseball Today, presented to you by Booking.com. Don't forget to get your Booking.com question in by tonight.